Apple cider vinegar has become a global obsession, racking up over $1.2 billion in sales every year, and that number keeps rising. From ancient medicine to modern detox trends, this sharp liquid has found its way into half of American households. But what actually goes into making it? How do factories turn ordinary apples into one of the most powerful products on the shelf? Let's break it down here at the Process World. The ancient origins of vinegar. Interestingly, vinegar has been around longer than most of the foods in your fridge. It dates back over 7,000 years, starting with the Babylonians, who made it from dates. Later, the Egyptians and Greeks began fermenting fruits, including apples, turning them into a sour liquid used for food, medicine, and even preservation. At the same time, vinegar was also taking root in the Middle East. Ancient Babylonians didn't just use grapes, they fermented dates into vinegar too. This method spread through ancient Egypt and later across the Islamic world, where date vinegar became a staple in both cooking and traditional medicine. It was one of the earliest forms of fruit vinegar ever recorded. In medieval France, apple orchards in Normandy became known for producing cider vinegar, laying the foundation for the version we know today. Then came the settlers, bringing apple seeds and fermentation knowledge across the Atlantic to North America. By the time colonial America took shape, apple cider vinegar was a household staple. And in the 20th century, it made a major comeback when Paul C. Bragg introduced the raw, unfiltered version to health enthusiasts everywhere. So while the recipe has ancient roots, the way we make apple cider vinegar today looks completely different, especially inside a modern factory. But before we get into that, please leave a like and subscribe for more amazing videos like this one. Now, moving on. Everything starts with apples. And not just any apples. Factories usually go for ones that are fully ripe, juicy, and slightly sweet. These are harvested during the fall months, mostly between September and December, when they've had enough time to develop strong flavor and natural sugar. Once they arrive at the factory, the first step is cleaning. Apples go through a wash cycle that removes dirt, debris, and anything that might have come along for the ride from the orchard. After washing, the apples are sorted. Machines or workers check for bruises, cuts, or rot because only quality fruit makes good vinegar. In some production lines, the apples are stored for a few extra days in a controlled environment. This helps soften them slightly, which increases juice yield when it's time to press. This part of the process doesn't involve any chemicals or shortcuts. It's just about giving the apples the right conditions to deliver the most juice and flavor. From here, they're ready to move into the heavy machinery for the next phase, Step 2. Crushing and juicing. In this stage, the apples are fed into powerful machines that crush them into a thick, pulpy mash. This mash contains all the juice, fibers, seeds, and skin blended together. It's messy, but it's the key to getting the most liquid out of every single apple. Next comes the pressing stage. Large industrial presses like belt presses or hydraulic systems squeeze the pulp with high pressure. The goal here is simple: extract every drop of juice without bringing along too many solids. What comes out is raw, cloudy apple juice, which is collected into tanks and quickly moved to the next stage. Meanwhile, the leftover apple solids, called pomace, are often reused as animal feed or for composting, so very little goes to waste. At this point, the juice is fresh, unfiltered, and packed with natural sugar. And that's exactly what the next step needs to kick off fermentation. Once the apple juice is pressed and collected, it needs to be stabilized. That's where pasteurization comes in. The juice is heated to around 90 degrees Celsius for a short period, usually just 10 to 15 seconds. This quick heat treatment kills off any harmful bacteria or wild yeasts that could mess up the fermentation process later on. It also helps extend the shelf life and keeps the flavor consistent. After heating, the juice is rapidly cooled to just above freezing. Factories use specialized chilling systems to bring the temperature down fast, which prevents spoilage and prepares the juice for storage or immediate fermentation. At this stage, some producers might filter out excess pulp or add food-grade preservatives like potassium sorbate, especially if they're planning to store the juice before starting fermentation. Everything is carefully controlled: temperature, timing, and cleanliness, because this sets the tone for the entire process ahead. This is where the real transformation happens. The sweet apple juice now heads into fermentation tanks, and the process kicks off in two major phases. First comes alcoholic fermentation. Factories add a specific type of yeast, often Saccharomyces cerevisiae, which feeds on the natural sugars in the juice. Over several days, that sugar turns into ethanol. What you end up with is something similar to hard apple cider. Next, it's time for the acetic fermentation. In this phase, a group of bacteria called Acetobacter goes to work. These bacteria consume the ethanol and slowly convert it into acetic acid. That's the compound responsible for vinegar's sharp taste and strong smell. This step usually takes a few weeks in traditional methods, but factories can speed things up using advanced equipment like submerged fermentation tanks with air injection systems. These can finish the process in just a few days. The result? Raw, unfiltered apple cider vinegar, full of flavor and acidity. In some cases, you'll see a cloudy mass floating in the liquid. That's called the mother, a mix of proteins and bacteria that some brands keep for health-conscious buyers. Once fermentation is complete, the vinegar goes through a cleanup phase. At this point, it's loaded with tiny particles, leftover yeast, and sediment from the fermentation tanks. To make it shelf-ready, factories use a process called racking, where the liquid is gently siphoned away from the heavier stuff that sinks to the bottom. This keeps the flavor intact while removing the murky leftovers. Then comes filtration. Depending on the brand, the vinegar might pass through paper filters, fine mesh, or even natural agents like gelatin or enzymes to remove cloudiness. Some producers skip heavy filtration if they want to keep the mother alive in the final product, which is often seen in raw or organic varieties. After that, some batches are aged for several weeks or even months in stainless steel tanks or wooden barrels. This deepens the flavor and gives the vinegar a smoother finish. Not every factory ages their vinegar, but when they do, it's all about refining the final taste. Now that the vinegar is filtered and aged, it's time to make sure it meets strict industry standards. The main focus here is acidity. Most commercial apple cider vinegar is adjusted to a consistent 5% acetic acid level. This ensures it's strong enough to preserve itself, deliver flavor, and meet food safety regulations. Factories carefully dilute the vinegar with purified water if the acidity is too high, and they test each batch with precision equipment to keep things consistent. Some manufacturers also choose to pasteurize the vinegar one more time. This second heat treatment helps kill any remaining bacteria or yeast that could affect shelf life. It's especially common for filtered and clear varieties that don't include the mother. For brands that want to keep the vinegar raw and unfiltered, this step is skipped, but they have to take extra care with cleanliness and bottling to avoid contamination. By the end of this phase, the vinegar is balanced, safe, and stable. Every drop has gone through a full transformation, from sweet apple juice to a tart, tangy liquid that's ready to be bottled and sold around the world. This part happens in a fully automated bottling line that's built for speed and hygiene. Sterilized glass or plastic bottles are lined up on a conveyor belt, and each one is filled with precise amounts of vinegar using high-speed filling machines. Everything is measured down to the last drop to avoid waste and ensure consistency across every bottle. Once filled, the bottles are capped immediately, usually with tamper-evident seals, to protect the product and meet safety standards. Labels are applied next, showing important details like the brand, ingredients, acidity level, and whether it's raw, organic, or filtered. Some brands also include batch numbers for traceability. Then comes final packaging. Bottles are grouped, packed into cartons, and stacked on pallets for transport. From there, they head to warehouses, stores, and eventually kitchen shelves around the world. The packaging step isn't just about looks. It keeps the vinegar safe, clean, and ready for everyday use. Whether it's used in a recipe or sold as a health tonic, This is how every bottle starts its journey to the customer. And that's it. So now that you've seen how a simple apple turns into one of the most powerful liquids in your kitchen, here's the real question. If something this sharp and useful can come from fermented fruit, what other everyday foods do you think are hiding insane factory secrets? Share your thoughts in the comments section below as you leave a like and subscribe for more videos like this.